Thank you so much for tuning in, and you are listening to Radio Biryani, and this is your host, Usha Perry. She is a multifaceted social entrepreneur and a child abuse prevention activist known for her extensive involvement as a community leader, volunteer, speaker, panelist, and a teacher. In her commitment to societal improvement, she founded Color Me Safe and the Color Me Safe Foundation, focusing on safeguarding children and empowering families through providing guidance and solutions in child welfare issues. Not just that, with a passion for global exploration, she is also a classical piano instructor, co-host of a podcast series, author, and a blogger. Please join me in welcoming Gautami Vemula Queijo. Welcome, Gautami. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here today. Thank you.
And I just want to thank you again for agreeing to discuss such an important matter, such an important topic today. Because I feel for any community to thrive or to be healthy, and for that matter, the overall stability, the safeguarding children is the most important aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for providing this platform so we can speak.
And I just want to commend from Radio Biryani's team for the amazing work you're doing.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your kind words.
So, Gautami, tell us, where did it all begin? What inspired you to start this organization?
So inspiration came from a variety of places. So I think there's a story behind how all of this started. So just bear with me as I kind of explain. So like a good Indian girl, I was, to be a doctor.
Yes.
And, fitting into such a very broad society, such as being Indian and being American, I didn't know which way to go. And I struggled, as a lot of Indian kids do struggle here in this country. In my junior year in college, I wanted to be like some of my American friends and have a boyfriend. Well, dating was a no-no. In my family, it was all about academics. And my hope and dreams was to become a doctor. Right. And as I mentioned, I wanted a boyfriend, and I got one. And sadly, it turned into a very violent relationship, to the point where he almost killed me.
Oh my God.
So my dreams of becoming a doctor were completely shattered. So I was I was pulled out of school. Mother's instinct, they know when something's wrong with their child.
Absolutely.
So I was, again, pulled out of school. My grades had gone down. I lost a semester, and later on, I ended up finishing my bachelor's in psychology and biology. I graduated with honors. I pulled myself back up from what I was going through. God's grace,
Yes.
And I ended up pursuing a double master's degree in clinical psychology and counseling, because my brush with violence inspired me to want to go help others who were feeling, going through trauma, going through some form of abuse. And got my master's, and I started off as a clinician working with adults. And sadly, I didn't want to work with adults anymore, because I was young, in my early 20s,
Right.
and I thought adults are just impossible to fix. So I moved on to children.
I like that. Impossible to fix.
Exactly. So out of nowhere, mom and dad wanted more culture. We lived in a very rural town in southeastern New Mexico. So we decided to move to Dallas, Indians versus cowboys. I don't know.
Yes.
So, we moved here a few weeks before 9/11 occurred. So me practicing being a clinician, unfortunately, there was no reciprocity between the New Mexico license and the Texas license. And I was told, you have to go get more hours, you have to go do more schooling. And I'm like, I just finished graduate school. So I ended up applying to Child Protective Services. And I got hired in a span of 24 hours. And let me tell you, there is no type of book work, classroom work, that will ever prepare you for what I have seen. So after being in 6 weeks of tedious academy and learning, they threw me to the wolves. And my first case out of the academy was a 3-year-old who got raped by 3 different men.
Oh my God.
And those perpetrators fled to Mexico. And, I grew up in a very trusting and loving home. Yes, I experienced my own violence, but to commit a crime against a child goes against every promise we made to humanity. It's one of the most heinous acts ever. I cried for a good month, and, mom and dad were like, why don't you leave? Why don't you leave? But in order to get justice for that child, I knew I needed to stay and help other kids. So 1 month turned into 10.5 years at CPS. And through my time there, I saw a variety of things. So I started off as a sexual abuse investigator, and that's all I investigated. So again, whenever someone tells me something, I'm not, oh my God, oh my God. No, because I know these things happen.
Yes.
And it's sad and it's disgusting, you know? So I started off as a sex abuse investigator, worked myself up to a department head, and then I became a quality and training manager where there was 10 of us, all master's level, PhD levels that were handpicked by the state of Texas to run a very integral program. It was a quality and training unit where we trained new investigators to go out in the field and assess abuse and neglect. So rewind back to my earlier time at CPS, I would get numerous phone calls specifically from the South Asian community asking me and telling me, hey, I've got a CPS case. I got your name from, the local Indian Association or temple or whatnot. So in addition to my own work, I was finding myself 3 to 4 hours a night guiding them throughout their own CPS case.
Wow.
And luckily I was able to do that because they were out of my jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yeah. So fast forward back to 2011, this integral program that I was part of, guess what the state decided to do? They decided to dissolve this integral part of the program.
Oh, no.
So all of us were so tenured. So they either, they told us you either take a demotion or you leave. Well, okay. And I ended up applying for other department head positions, but nepotism was quite notorious at that time. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And then this light bulb had went off. And I was thinking about my earlier time at CPS. I'm like, you know what? What if I started up my own consulting firm, helping families navigate through the complexities of the CPS landscape? So I ended up pitching it to another colleague of mine. We did our homework. We did the research. Nothing like this in the state of Texas was being done. So I gave birth to Color Me Safe.
Wonderful.
So Color Me Safe is the LLC. That's the consulting part. And then, over the years, since we've been open, we worked about 50 pro bono cases, which is equivalent to about 1,000 hours that we have put in. And, families were getting turned away because they couldn't afford our services and whatnot. So finally in 2022, I was like, we got to do something. We have to do something. These are the families that are going to get left behind or fall through the cracks. And I want to help them. I don't want to turn them away. Hence, we filed for our 501c3. And we got approved. And then last year, we just started our fundraising, our grant money. So Color Me Safe Foundation is the nonprofit arm of Color Me Safe.
Wonderful. Gautami, that story is so touching, inspiring. It's you never gave up and you prepared yourself to see something. Maybe, as you said, no amount of preparation is enough, or you'll never be prepared to see anything like that.
You don't.
And amazing how one after the other, when one door closed, you're like, okay, let me think of something. And it maybe adversity leads to something, you tend to do that. You tend to think, even you are like, maybe something better will come out of it. Like,
exactly.
So that's how it happened.
You have two choices. Whatever adversity you go through, you can channel it in two ways. You could choose to go one way and sit in a corner, be sad, and, oh, poor me.
Yes.
Or you channel it into the positive. Like, let me do something about it.
Maybe that'll open up ways to something more beautiful, more meaningful.
Absolutely. I strongly believe in Mahatma Gandhi's quote, be the change that you want to see. And I strongly, strongly believe in that. And, and I wanted to be a voice for those families because Child Protective Services, yes, they're based on sound principles, but I've also seen the flip side of it.
Yes.
And it ends in trauma.
Yes.
It ends in depression. And I want to be able to fill that void in the community and be the voice for those that don't have one. And often, I get asked, are you against Child Protective Services? Not at all. No. They launched my career.
Right.
Yes. No, my whole goal is to build a bridge between a broken system and the families we serve. Yeah. Are there parents out there who mistreat their children? Oh, yeah. Yes. I've seen it.
Yes.
I've seen it. But at the same time, you have your parental rights. You want to make sure your parental rights are not violated. Your civil rights are not violated. And that's our job. If you made a mistake, you know what? We get involved. Okay, how do we fix this?
Right.
How do we fix this?
Yes.
but we can't like put a black mark on them for the rest of their
and
lives.
you can't just sit back and say, okay, this system has been there for so many years, so let's accept it and let it go on and on. It can't be done like that.
Exactly.
Every system has some loopholes, if I might say, or some things which can be fixed, and I think you're just doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the system sometimes I feel like is it set up to fail our families? I see immigrant families. I've seen refugee families. I've seen families that are lower on the socioeconomic level that don't speak the language. You come to a new country, you don't understand, you don't know how to assimilate, and then all of a sudden CPS is at your door. What do I do?
Yes.
It's traumatic. And
Yes.
no one knows who to turn to, who to go to, and they need an advocate by their side.
Oh, absolutely. You're doing an amazing job. I can't stress on that enough.
Thank you.
So, just to understand the seriousness
Sure.
of the issue, Gautami, could you describe the scale and the severity of these challenges that families face?
Oh my gosh, it could be to 0 to maximum 10.
Wow.
It could be very simple to discipline issues. Okay, these are the appropriate discipline issues. These are inappropriate discipline issues, to the point where you're severely sexually abused. You have an unprotected mother or father who continues to expose you to that abuse, to severe physical abuse where the children are removed from the parents' care and placed into care, custody, and control of the state. That's how severe it can get. And it could take up to a year to get some of these kids back into your home. They go through a foster home, and if that foster home doesn't work, they go to another foster home. Tell me, how traumatic is that for a child?
Everyone involved.
Everyone involved,
Yes.
from the parents down to the kids.
Yes.
I've been in homes where they smoke meth. I've removed children where they're just suffocating in their own feces.
Oh my God.
So again,
It's just painful to hear it. And
Yeah.
if somebody experiencing it, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And just that whole experience, what are the things that are generally overlooked, the issues, and how the whole crisis, right, involving the child welfare, how do you navigate?
That's a great question. It all depends on family to family. There's so many disparities. There's so many inequities, and we're talking about let's take survivors of domestic violence, right? When Child Protective Services comes out there is a tendency for that survivor to be re-victimized. Yeah, and that's really unfortunate for what they're going through. There's children involved. Hey, I'm in a very traumatic situation. My husband or my significant other is beating me, and you're coming out here to investigate, and you're re-victimizing me and taking the perpetrator's side.
Right.
That's one.
I'm sure that happens.
That's one. And then parents, CPS comes out there. Imagine how traumatic it is for parents, because you're questioning my ability to parent. And that's like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And then there's also differences in cultural nuances.
I was just about to mention that.
Yeah.
What in your culture, what might sound right, from an outsider, it might sound
Exactly.
very different.
I mean, let's take, India.
Right.
Okay. A Hindu family, traditionally from South India, state to state, let's say,
Yeah.
is traditionally different from a Hindu family in northern India. Same thing with the Muslim family. A Muslim family from India is going to be different from a Pakistani family or a Bangladeshi family.
Absolutely.
And CPS investigators, let's talk about cultural sensitivity. As we're going into a home, stepping into a home, we need to be utterly sensitive of the family dynamics, of the culture, of the traditions, of the sub-traditions. We need to know what we're walking into. Hence, if you are a good investigator, you're going to do your research before we go in. Language barriers.
And how many people do that research?
Yeah, they don't. They don't. They want to come in and investigate the case and get out. I know tenure right now at the entire State Department is probably less than a year or two. Wow. The lack of cultural sensitivity and understanding, that lacks as well. I've seen it. There are great investigators that do a good job, right? But at the same time, we also need to take the time to understand and care and approach with empathy and approach with compassion.
Those nuances, right?
Those cultural nuances,
yes,
exactly.
And you have to, as you said, you have to be sensitive to take the solution or the whatever that has to be done in the right direction, in the right
Exactly.
way, and whether anything needs to be done at all.
Right.
Yeah, maybe sometimes it's just a counseling that's all needed.
Right.
Yeah.
And, when we go out there, we need to keep our personal biases out, our perceptions out. There was a beautiful movie in 2023, Norway versus Mrs. Chatterjee.
Yes.
That's
That's
exactly,
Rani Mukherjee,
yeah, Rani
right?
Mukherjee movie.
Yes.
She was force feeding her kids.
Right.
Okay? To us, that's love.
Yeah,
To
I
us,
did
that's
that.
love.
I'm
My
guilty
mom
of
did
that
that
too.
with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
That's frowned upon. And look
Yes.
what happened. Her children were removed.
Yes.
So we, as a society, need to understand, be a little bit more open and understanding of other cultures and other customs and traditions. It's so important.
So I totally get this. But do you think that there are some long-term implications for children or families who do not receive adequate support during these crises, and they are just maybe they are not reached on time, or what are the long-term implications you might
There's
think
so
of?
many long-term implications. Separating children from their parents. How traumatic is that on the parents and children? The mental health deteriorates. The way the child behaves in school deteriorates. Grades kind of come down. You go into a stage of depression, maybe alcoholism. I've worked with families where children have been removed, and mom and dad are initially very happy, and children are extremely happy. An isolated incident can happen, entire world
Breaks
falls
down.
apart. And then in this particular case, the children were removed, placed into CPS care. Mom and dad ended up getting a divorce because that's how much it affected them.
Right. Yeah. Families fall apart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And when there's something traumatic happens, we need to learn and understand the long-term implications and the adverse effects that it could have on the family as a whole and as the children as a whole.
Yes. And yeah, that can be. And everything changes: personality, physically, socially, emotionally, mentally,
Right.
everything. That has a long lasting effect.
Absolutely.
Absolute. And you have to take that into consideration as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I often think about our immigrant families that we work with. In the last decade, we've had an influx of immigrant families that come into this, enter the United States. What do they know about CPS?
Yes. Yes.
There's who do they go to? So let's say we get our green card and our citizenship. We learn about American history and things like that. But what about the simple things? What happens when I enter this country? Something happens to my child. What if my husband hits me? What if CPS comes out? What do I need to do? Where's that education there?
I just want to point this out, Gautami. It's not only the immigrant families with who have come, people who have been living here
Sure.
for years together.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, as you said, we focus on things which are nice and rosy and things are happening very well, but we also have to give a thought. What if, right? If something were to happen, where do you go? How do you navigate? Whom do you approach to start with, right? And yeah, absolutely.
There seems to be, and I'm going to be so forthcoming and honest about this, when it comes to the South Asian community, there is such a disconnect. And we have such a stigma and taboo attached to so many of these issues, from bullying to, domestic violence to child abuse. And then when it does happen in your family, it's like, ayo. I call it the ayo effect.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
know.
And we can't shy away.
No.
How do we bring awareness to something when we're not educated? We go to these galas, right? What are we going for?
Yes.
What are we going for? How much do you understand this? If I asked our audience, what is child abuse? What is it?
Yes.
How many of them can actually tell me?
And it need not be something very dramatic.
Yeah.
It can be something very subtle, and it's happening every single day. It need not be only physical abuse for that matter. It can be at any level.
Exactly.
Right.
So in the state of Texas, let's just talk about child abuse real quick. What is child abuse? It's the mistreatment of a child that results in harm or injury. So there's main types of forms of abuse: physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, there is neglectful supervision, there's emotional abuse. And each of those we can break down.
Right.
So
So that's why it's all the more important to understand, as you said, the sensitivities. It's
Right.
not just what, maybe you'll not even see something is wrong with the child unless you talk to them, unless understand what's going on.
Exactly.
What? So we discussed a lot of gaps, Gautami. We discussed the gaps between the current child welfare and the legal system. But do you believe that there is a need for urgent attention to better protect the families and support the families?
I have seen families that have fallen through the cracks, and I think a majority of it is they don't know who to turn to. They don't know what resources are out there, because it's a crisis situation, right? So we
You're
can't
already
thoroughly
going through
think.
so
You're already
much.
going through, who do I turn to? Who do I turn to? And Color Me Safe, we're such a special niche. Nothing like this is being done, but we do want families to know that there is help. There are voices out there who are willing to advocate for you. You're not alone. And you have to ask for help. And as uncomfortable as it could be, because these are private situations,
Right.
there are people out there to help you. And families that don't speak the language, that don't have the economic means, those are the families that fall through the cracks. But there is help out there.
So do you think that it needs to be more, we need to go out there, let more people know that something like this exists? I think
100%.
that's something which everyone should
Right.
be aware of.
Exactly. One of the questions I also, we get quite often. So, family crisis and child welfare, how is it connected? Well, when there is a breakdown in a family and there's children involved, it directly affects the welfare of a child, whether it be physical, emotional, mental. Healthy family, healthy children.
It's just common sense, I guess.
Exactly. And even when there's like divorce and custody issues, we there's help out there.
Yes.
I'd rather have families divorce than stay together and scapegoat your child. Learn to co-parent if you're going to divorce.
I absolutely, it's not that we are we are not proponent of getting divorced or anything, but sometimes that's the best solution in some
Exactly.
situations, rather than just living together and just suffering. Nobody's happy in that situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we talked about so many things. So I just want to understand, how does your organization
Sure.
specifically address these disparities or inequities?
Oh, absolutely. So we start from consultations to helping families that are, going through the CPS process. We will help guide you through the entire investigation. And let's say if there's divorce and custody issues, we're going to be able to guide you through like parenting strategies. How do you better co-parent yourself? And if you're going through, domestic violence issues too, we can guide you throughout all of that. So it takes a consultation. That's what it takes. And we're going to be as honest and forthcoming as we can. We are a neutral party, and we want to be able to empower our families with that knowledge.
Yes.
To move forward.
You don't take sides.
Yeah, exactly. And it may not be directly happening to you, but imagine if you knew somebody that this was happening to, you're able to educate them. Hey, there is a resource out there. These are some of the things that you can do.
Yes. And I think it's, as we know, that's 911, but these are, as you said, they are very personal.
Right.
They're very private situations the people are dealing with. So
Right.
there is a need for an organization which feels for you, maybe empathize with your situation, something like
Absolutely.
that.
And we have several families that have, consulted with an attorney. Family law attorneys are wonderful. They're great. But also, we kill two birds with one stone. We know policy and procedure because we worked at CPS. My entire team has 50 years of experience in the child welfare system. So we're not only just helping the attorney, but we're helping the family as well.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So initially when we started the conversation, we discussed about this very traumatic case. Even now I'm trembling literally. But any other challenging case that comes to your mind and that you or your organization helped, and how did you handle it?
Absolutely. So in December of 2020, we received a phone call from one of the Indian organizations here, South Asian organizations, saying they had a case, and this involved a couple recently came from India. Probably they've been here for about 6 to 7 months. Newborn baby, 4 months old. The baby fell off the bed. It was an isolated incident. And to make a long story short, the hospital, they did all the right things, and they took all measurable cautions to protect this child. And then the hospital completely twisted it around, whatever. I don't know how they misunderstood it, but they removed the child very quickly, blaming
4 months old baby.
4 months old baby, separating the baby from the mother, separating the baby from the father, filing criminal charges on the father, saying that he was responsible for injury to a child. Okay.
Oh my God.
It took almost a year to get this baby back. We were with them for an exact 1 year, guiding them through the process. They didn't know how the system worked here.
7 months old in the country.
Yeah, 7 months old in the country. So if I remember correctly, both parents went to court to see what they can do to get this baby back. The opposing attorney on the side, the mom in this case had sindoor on top of her head. You know what the defense attorney? Oh, look, judge, this man is beating her. Look at the red blood on her head.
Oh my God.
Cultural nuances, right? Didn't know. You just assumed. You never asked. We were in the picture, printed out a bunch of literature, send it over. This is what this is, sir.
Right. I mean, yeah, we can't even blame them because they don't know, because as you said, they didn't do their homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the gap
There's
you're
a
trying
gap.
to fill.
Exactly.
And finally,
So after almost before the year was up, they were able to reunite with this baby. After we had to get a forensic medical individual come in to look at all the medical reports, and the criminal charges were dropped on the father. This is one of the sweetest families I've ever met in my entire life, and it broke my heart to see them go through this.
That's such a beautiful work you're doing, Gautami. It's such a beautiful, God bless you. So before, this is my last question. I'll let you go.
No.
So I just want one advice you would like to give to a family currently facing a crisis that involves a child welfare challenges.
Yeah. Ask for help. Ask for help. Get on the internet, do the research, ask around, because we're out there. Yes. People are out there to help you and guide you throughout the process. If you don't know one person, ask for someone to connect you with that individual. Gets around.
Yes. Get out and ask for help. And how do they ask for help from you?
Absolutely. So our website is www.colormesafe.net. That is our LLC. Now, for those individuals who do not have the economic means, there is help there too. And that's www.colormesafefoundation.org.
Okay. That's colormesafe.net and colormesafefoundation.org.
Yes, that's correct.
Color Me Safe. COLORMESAFE.
Exactly.
Color Me Safe.
Yes.
And I really want to talk about these new 2 initiatives that you just started, Gautami.
I'm so excited about this.
Yes, I'm excited as well. I want to know about them.
So actually, these 2 initiatives are the education and awareness programs through the Color Me Safe Foundation. So just a little bit story, so you have to bear with me again.
No, of course.
So we actually partner up with Man Mukti, which is a student-led organization here at UTD. And their whole mission is to destigmatize mental health within the South Asian community. So we provide small group therapy for their students.
Wonderful.
Once a month. And last year when we started, right after our group, kids started talking to us. And they were asking us random questions about my personal life, my dating, just growing up here, colorism, all kinds of just questions. And we were answering, and I'm like, wow, nothing has changed since I was a kid being raised here. If anything, these trends have gotten worse.
And they're as confused as they were.
And they're as confused as they were, as I was.
Yes.
as I was. And I'm like, they want to be heard. They want to be seen, And I'm like, I need to do something else. So, couldn't sleep one night. The wheels on my head keep ringing.
And the typical Gautami.
Yeah, the typical Gautami. My husband always makes fun of me. He's like, when are you going to shut that brain up? So I came up with Ask Auntie. So Auntie, there's an acronym. A is for authentic. U is for understanding. N is for nurturing, T is for trustworthy, I is for inclusive, and E is for empathy.
Wow.
So we're trying to create support groups for preteens and teens that are, going through adolescence. And Ask Auntie is not necessarily asking questions, but it's a support group of peers and an older person, a safe person, a non-judgmental person that they can go to. So we're trying to create these support groups in different areas of the DFW.
Wonderful. Ask Auntie. ASKAUNTIE.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
And it's a support group. That's it. It's not Auntie knows everything. And again, it has nothing to do with or no, it's not an attack on the parents either. None.
No.
Nothing.
Maybe at the end of the day, they'll understand parents better, maybe.
Exactly. It's to bridge that gap between kids, things that I may not be able to go tell mom and dad. I have that auntie that I can go to, and I have a group of peers that I trust. That
I
won't
love the
judge
name.
me.
I love that name. Ask Auntie. Very, very, very nice. Yeah.
Thank
And the
you.
other initiative we were talking about the other day.
Well, we got to help kids on the flip side of it. Can't leave out the parents as well. So we created another group called the Sati Support Group.
Wonderful.
And we've identified predominantly South Asian neighborhoods, and it's to create support groups for those families. Where there could be communication gap, where there is intergenerational trauma, where there might be people experiencing domestic violence, or just simple communication with my children. How do I connect with them more? This is a ever-changing, evolving world. Kids are facing dual identities. Parents are
Yes.
facing dual identities. Where do we fit in? So we're creating this support group.
Wonderful.
As well.
That's Sati support group for the parents and Ask Auntie for the kids. And it's colormesafe.in and it's colormesafefoundation.org. All these are the places where you can ask for help. And please don't be hesitant. Nobody's going to judge. They are here to help. And thank you, Gautami. Thank you so much. And I promise you, listeners, I'm going to get her back and we are going to have another informative conversation with her. And again, Gautami, I can't thank you enough for coming in today and having this so meaningful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Usha.
Thank you.